So I'm here to talk to you guys today about a argument that's been going on since the dawn of time in the retro gaming community. Basically, emulation versus original hardware. Okay, now I do both. We're going to talk about emulation benefits, its shortcomings. We're also going to talk about original hardware and its shortcomings. And at the end, I'll give you my opinion on what I prefer to do. Now, let's talk about emulation first. Well, obviously, emulation, if you don't know what it is, basically you're running game ROMs on something that's capable of emulating the system you're playing for. To simplify it, basically you have a program that's acting like your old retro console, and you're taking the ROMs from that got ripped from that old retro console software and playing it. There's no console involved, it's just the ROMs and whatever you're running on, whether it be a computer, Raspberry Pi, a handheld, whatever you're running on. That's basically emulation in a nutshell. Now, what are the benefits of emulation? Well, the benefits of emulation are obviously a huger catalog of games to play, right? So you can emulate nowadays anything, and when I say emulate, I mean pretty good emulation, all the way up to the Xbox 360. I've seen some even knock on the door with the PlayStation 4. So anything PlayStation 4, kind of, but just to be fair, we'll say Xbox and PlayStation 3. Anything at that level and down, and if you want to include the Switch in there as well, that's a newer console. You can run them virtually, almost 1-to-1 in some cases, sometimes even better. Now, another benefit of emulation is it's free, okay, for the most part. You don't have to pay for anything. You have to pay for something to run your emulation, but after that, I'm not going to go too deep into stuff, but you can find games for your emulation software, okay? And the sky's the limit. You don't have to track something down. You don't have to get a rare game and pay like $500 to play it like you would do if you were playing on real hardware. Another benefit of emulation is upscaling. I mean, nowadays you can take stuff and run games that are originally meant to run in 240p or less and run them in 4K. You can have beautiful graphics. You can see more pixels now than you could back in the day because those old games were designed to run on those 240 settings. Not so much designed to run in 4K, but lots of times they look amazing. Another benefit of emulation, save states. Okay, so if you're playing an old retro game that's kind of tough, you can actually stop what you're doing, save the game, and keep trying over and over. Again, those old games on the original hardware, you can't do that. You have to play the game, maybe get to a save state. If you're playing a more modern retro console, maybe they'll have a memory card saved for you or something like that. But with emulation, you can save anywhere. You can save after every boss fight, every enemy, whatever you want to do, you can do that. And then emulation goes on with another benefit of convenience. Okay, like I said earlier, you can emulate pretty much anything, and the best part is you can play it on anything. If you got a Raspberry Pi, you're emulating some high-end stuff. If you got a medium grade or a low grade PC, you're emulating Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, classics, and the whole library is accessible to you. Even if you got a handheld, and some handhelds are pretty powerful now, like your Steam Deck, or if you have a PC handheld, you can pretty much emulate anything on the go. And also emulations come so far now where you can actually add graphic effects like shaders and stuff like that, where you can actually emulate those old CRT looks. You can put your own scan lines. You have many scan lines to choose from. You can choose from certain type of TV scan lines, because back in the day, every TV, even though it was 240p and they look beautiful, the old CRTs give off different pictures. A Sony Trinitron TV is not going to look the same as a Magnavox, and a Magnavox CRT is not going to look the same as a Sylvania. You get what I'm saying? Every CRT brought its own flavor and look to the game. But with shaders, with the emulators, you can actually somewhat bring it down to what you want to look like. They even have some of those PVM shaders that look actually pretty good. Now, let's talk about the downfalls of emulation. Well, emulation isn't true one-to-one. And I understand, and I also know that lots of emulators nowadays introduce lag. Now, yes, they do have the run-ahead feature, and I'm not going to go too deep into that, but basically, best way I can explain it is it cuts the lag by running a bunch of save states to where when you jump, you're getting a better refresh rate than you would without it turned on. So basically, you're cutting a lot of the lag out. But some emulators don't allow that, okay? Like your PS2 emulators, those, you're always going to get lag with them. Pretty much any emulator that's higher end, you're going to get some degree of lag. also, and it sounds like I'm contradicting myself here, but I'm just telling the truth, as beautiful as those shaders look, they're still just emulation. A CRT is going to outperform even the best OLEDs. Now, OLEDs can be compatible with a great upscaler. I mean, you can be on par. OLED does kind of hold its own, but at the end of the day, nothing emulates a CRT better than an actual freaking CRT. Okay, so now let's jump over to real hardware. Now, the benefits of real hardware is you're running one-to-one, you're playing the game how it was meant to be played, with all its glitches, all its imperfections, and all its glory. Okay, another benefit of original hardware is generally if they're games from the Xbox 360 and even the PlayStation 3 and below, you get to play them on a beautiful CRT TV. CRTs are still pretty much, you can find them anywhere. You can still find them out on people's lawn that throw them out. You can still find them for virtually free, people giving them away. And for like, I bought an HD CRT that takes HDMI for only $100 just, I don't know, 3 months ago. So people are still giving these things away and they still have beautiful pictures. You're not gonna get no lag when you play on the CRT. Now just to point this out, if you play an HDMI console on an HDMI CRT, it will introduce some lag, but that's a story for another time. But generally, if you play it with component or composite cables, you're not going to get any lag, and you're going to see all the pixels, the clear motion. If you've never played an original console on a CRT, you definitely probably should. I mean, you're not going to understand it until you do it. Now, well, to go further, another benefit with real hardware is nowadays they have upscalers, and what an upscaler is basically if you have an OLED display, you can take a RetroTink, you can take a OSSC, and you hook it up to your console, and it basically upscales your console to your TV. It cuts the lag and gives you a plethora of options. So now you can run your old original hardware on modern displays, and the picture is beautiful. Now, like I said, I'm still gonna say this, it's not a CRT beautiful, but it's the next best thing. I mean, OLED takes your old games to a whole nother level with a good upscaler. Another benefit of original hardware is you can actually modify your original hardware and expand your library as well. Now, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. Alright, mateys. But you can do that. You can have it to where you have a PlayStation 2, modify it, and now you as well have access to everything, but you're still playing it on original hardware the way it's meant to be played. Now, let's talk about some of the cons with original hardware. Well, it's expensive. Okay, original hardware, you can buy a PlayStation 2. More common consoles like that you can find for a decent price, $70, $80 is generally what you're gonna pay for one. But you can pay for but more rare consoles like a Sega Saturn, you can pay about $300 for one of those easy. PlayStation 1 you can still find in a trash can. For some reason you can find those anywhere. More exotic consoles like your TurboGrafx-16 or Neo Geo consoles, they can fetch a price up anywhere from, I've seen one recently, I saw one for like $700 for a Neo Geo AES, some for like $900. If you buy an original hardware Neo Geo AES cart, now you're looking at anywhere from $200 sometimes. You can still get $50 for the crappy ones, but and in my opinion, I swear on no Neo Geo game sucks. They're all beautiful. That's just my opinion. But the ones that are less popular, you might spend less for. But the ones that are expensive and rare, you might spend about $300 to $400 for one. So original hardware can be expensive. Another downfall of original hardware is maintenance on your machine. Now, a lot of these machines are retro because they're like 20 to 30 years old. So things burn out. Laser discs, card readers stop working. Memory cards are getting scarce. They're not making these things anymore. So to find one in good working condition is a good find, but eventually it's going to crap out on you. You play it and play, it's going to crap out. They're 20 to 30 years old. So maintenance for your machine, but the good thing about that is one plus is they do make a lot of third-party things to fix your machines, but you have to do it. You got to maintain that machine. Another disadvantage of original hardware is your gameplay. Okay, so we're spoiled in a world where we like to save everything. Those old school games, if a save state wasn't available, you just have to play it. Okay, so there's no unless you have a Game Shark or a Game Genie or something like that where you can cheat, but you know, for the most part, you're playing the game as it was meant to be played. If it's super hard, deal with it, play something else, whatever. Also, the cost of your games are expensive. We kind of talked about that, but you don't get to play all the rare exotic games on a system unless you got it modified. you don't get to play those games unless you pay that premium price for the game. And then you might pay $500 for a game and it sucks. So your library is shortened, you know, somewhat with original hardware. The last con that I'm kind of seeing with original hardware is, while it's a plus to play on that CRT, CRTs are big and heavy. Now, if you got a small portable 13-inch you want to carry around, you know, put on your desk somewhere, you can do that. But mostly, for me, retro gaming on a CRT, this is my personal thing, 25 inches, okay? 20 maybe, but for me, I want 25 inches at least when I'm playing, okay? That thing is heavy. You gotta have a dedicated space for it. Those things pull a lot of power, they run hot, and eventually your CRT does break. CRT is not like a monitor where you can just adjust it or throw it out and get a new one. A CRT over time, the magnets get bad in it. It needs recapping and all that stuff. And your CRT is not going to look the more you use it, the worse it's going to look, whether it get fuzzy, whether the geometry's off or whatever. So even CRTs need maintenance, and they're heavy, and you need a dedicated space for your retro gaming if you're going original hardware with a CRT. So that about sums it up. And I'm sure there's some pros and cons that I missed. Now, what do I prefer? Well, that's a hard one. Okay, because I do both. What I love, I guess I do more emulation, and here's why. It's in a world where it's just more convenient. Okay, emulation, I can play these games. I can take my time with them. I can save them. I play them with. I like the fact that I can upscale the games. I like the fact that everything's accessible in one spot. That's another plus with emulation, where if I want to play a game, I can get a Raspberry Pi or something like that, or anything, that everything is just a click away. Okay, so I think with the convenience in today's world, I have to go with emulation. However, I just as an honorable mention, I have to say it was a very tough decision, because you can't see it, but I have a crap ton of CRTs, you know, all sizes, and I feel like I think what deters me is having to set it up, go through all that, and have the space for just one session of gaming. But if you can deal with, you know, setting your CRT up and all that stuff and getting everything right, then the experience is beautiful. It's not convenient as it is with emulation. And I'm an older guy, so I feel like I kind of want to play now whenever I want to play in one spot. But that's just my opinion, guys. I'm sure there's people who love original hardware over emulation, and some people won't even play emulated games. They only want to play on original hardware, and we salute you. That's cool. So with that said, guys, that's just kind of the differences. But let me know in the comments what you want to what your preference is. I mean, if you're an emulation guy or gal, you know, original hardware guy or gal, you know, what do you want out of your gaming? Okay, there's no wrong answers here. Both formats and both ways are viable. As long as you're playing the game, that's the main thing that counts. That's going to do it for this one, guys. As always, take care of yourself, protect you in peace. God bless you. Catch you on the next one.